Okay, Kalimera, can you hear me well?
Very well.
Okay, so thanks a lot for the introduction, Max. And well, unfortunately I don't play music, but apparently in the last few months and weeks we've been playing together in many occasions, including last week. So I will give my contribution. So, and I would say welcome to Samos 2.0, because as Yannis anticipated this morning, clearly this is a new version of the Samos we started 10 years ago. I'm very proud to say that thanks to Yannis and all the other colleagues of the Crossroad project in particular, we started in 2010 this adventure. I'm very happy to see that it's continuing, and it's a pity we couldn't meet in person, but hopefully next year. And okay, let's see. I will go through 4 main points here. You have the outline. I will go back to the future, exactly what we presented 10 years ago in Samos, after having, let's say, crafted the scenario for Digital Europe 2030 in Seville, and then see what happened in the last 10 years, very briefly through some of the results of a project I've been leading in the last 2 years, DigiGov, on exploring digital government transformation. And then, as Max said, I will get into the AI, so maybe preparing the ground for tomorrow discussion. I see Ronnie, Mariah, and many other friends and colleagues will discuss this issue. And the issue of evidence for future-proofing our policy and institutional redesign that is much needed today. And then I will get to the end presenting what we just discussed last week in a workshop on Shaping Digital Europe 2040. So as 10 years ago, we were looking at the horizon 2030, now we are looking 20 years ahead. And clearly, also, this is the role that has been always for JRC, especially when it was in Seville, called IPTS, Institute for Prospective Technological Studies. And now more than ever, because foresight is now key and central in the new Commission of von der Leyen, as Vice President Maros Šefčovič has this portfolio, and JRC is helping him exactly shaping the future of Europe. Although we have clearly also direct responsibility under Commissioner Maria Gabriel in the area of innovation, education, and research, of course. I was chatting with Andrea Di Maio. Maybe many of you may know him. That 15 years ago, actually, was presenting this in one of the classes of my master on e-governance, and this is how Garner was seeing exactly the future of e-government in 2020. I mean, he was used to say the future of e-government is government or no government, in the sense that there is basically everything happening smoothly behind the scenes, so we don't need to do any interaction, actually, as there are mashups and various, let's say, public and private service providers that provide us personalized services. Well, as Niels Bohr was used to say, the predictions are very difficult, especially about the predictions about the future. And this was also what we tried in a bold manner in 2010 to do with our crossroad scenarios, where we actually were not so far from some of the things that happened. And actually, as I always say to my former head of unit, Dave Broster, we will be right until 2029 anyway. So basically, we looked at that time of the possible changes that are actually happened to a certain extent in the way society is open or not in terms of governance. What are the capacity of governments to integrate what we call the policy intelligence, so the use of technology for digital governance and policy modeling. And in particular, we envisaged 4 scenarios, including, let's say, some negative ones, like the Leviathan, let's say, in the spirit of Thomas Hobbes' monster that control everything. And also, someone let me notice last week before the workshop we organized on foresight that actually we predicted for the pandemic of COVID, as we say, that as it was before 2010, the SARS created creating a number of problems, another virus could have come from Asia, actually outbreaking the governance systems in Europe, and that's what we did. And clearly, we were looking for a number of paradigmatic shifts, and I've been starting, I think, in 2009 at the Malmo conference to do this, let's say, game of looking at the person of the year on time, and not every year, but there is a resonance on the digital evolution, or supposed to be revolution, as we've seen YouTube arriving quite abruptly on the scene at a certain point, 2007, and then Mark Zuckerberg in 2009 with Facebook, and then the Arab Springs, when everybody was aiming or hoping that social media would have changed the governance and brought a new democratic systems in non-democratic countries. And then was Obama that first day in office signed the Open Government Declaration. And so we say, yes, we are there. Open government is the new normal. We only have to change behavior and society. And clearly we are not yet there, as we are somehow only halfway through this open battle for the open government. And then it was Angela Merkel, and now is back with the presidency of the EU. So people say, well, it's a sign of openness or not. But definitely Trump, when he was nominated Person of the Year, I mean, we can clearly say that is not a good sign for openness. Then we could have seen, as it was not the case, and we had a lot of discussion with Enrico about the blockchain futures, but clearly blockchain could have been the Person of the Year in 2018, as you cannot go anywhere without talking about it. And the same is for AI. Last year was definitely the year of artificial intelligence. Also, with other colleagues at the JRC, we've done another exercise a couple of years ago on looking at the future of government beyond 2030, and looking exactly at the possible implementation of the Tallinn Declaration that Max mentioned, and the citizen centricity that new government models should have. And here we have actually also engaging the students from design and public sector schools, and we see quite a negative perspective on most of the scenarios that are not far from anyway the scenarios we crafted in 2010. So the do-it-yourself democracy that we call self-service democracy, the private algocracy, or the super collaborative government, a kind of Leviathan, or the over-regulatory. So we don't see the open governance ideal type that we hope still could happen. And that's why in a Athenian democracy ideal type, I believe that we have to go back to the Samos to 2010 and see why we couldn't manage to get yet there. And clearly we see that the policy evolution has been quite disappointing, in the sense that we see other 10 years after the first 10 years of the century of declarations of very nice, ambitious plans with the Malmo Open and Trusted Government, the Ministerial Declaration, and then Brussels, and I remember also in Poland, and then there was the Tallinn, the Vienna, and the Helsinki Declaration on Human-Centric Digital Government just last year. The eGov Action Plan now coming to an end, and a new strategy where AI adoption in the public sector is definitely crucial. But then we have to deal with this new emerging pandemic society with a lot of uncertainty. So we've been looking before the pandemic actually hit us strongly to try to understand why innovation in the public sector is often lagging behind. Also, what are the factors that actually need to be coupled with technological innovation to increase the use of data for policy design, service delivery. And I won't go into details, but we developed a framework that tried to address exactly this. Looking at the antecedent of change and innovation, and how this change strategy could move us from a situation to a new one. Hello?
Yes, go on.
Yeah, okay, so there was a problem with the slide. Okay, so what happens is that, yeah, can you, yeah?
Can you reshare your screen, because somehow your
okay,
screen
there was
lost.
Okay.
Okay, it's coming. Yeah.
Okay, so can you see now? Okay,
Yes.
so basically, also we did quite a robust systematic analysis of the evidence in the last 15, 20 years, and we see that there is actually a very limited empirical evidence of the effects of digital government. So we always have an hope that technology will change and transform government, but especially in areas that are close to citizens' needs, like inclusion, legitimacy, and participation, this is not yet the case. As I say, we developed a framework and tested through empirical case studies and experiments, also with the collaboration with a large group of experts that exactly met in Seville, in ISPRA, and Brussels to discuss these issues. And so, as I say, we used this is also something not so common in the e-government, digital government realm, the experimental case studies. I won't go into details, but we used the randomized control trial, direct or indirect, and experimental or quasi-experimental approaches, also through an online panel with 1,400 users to check different topics that are hot in the policy agenda, like the use of body-worn cameras for policing, or the change of behavior for children and their family, but also the issue of privacy and trust in digital public services in two contexts completely different, like Spain and Germany. So somehow we try to unveil the path to digital government that is not necessarily a revolution, or rather an evolution in certain aspect, and we need to go beyond what I normally call the risk of mirroring effect, so just reproducing online what we have offline. And I mean, going through this again in a Gartnerian say rhetoric, the techno-optimism through the true of disillusionment. And clearly we really need to reimagine the government, looking at not only the service delivery, but the governance structures, and embracing the complexity that is needed. So in a summary, we can say that we have to define what are the framework conditions for innovating governance models and policy designs. And these are summarized into three main areas. On one side, we need to enable and unleash the innovation for the technological conditions to actually manage facilitate the openness of data and their sharing. Also looking at the risk and possible negative consequences. And we have to manage what I call the governance with and of ICT. So not just the introduction of technology into government, but rather how we regulate or non-regulate. So how we govern the institutional framework that actually need to embrace also and facilitate the engagement of citizens through social innovation. And finally, the issue of data-powered intelligence that is fundamental, so that we can have evidence-based policy making and better understand the possible impact of ICT on society. And again, the COVID is the clear example of how we are using data in a way that we don't actually really understand and know what is the consequences of specific actions. Now, what are the implications exactly?
You have 5 minutes stop. You have 5 minutes maximum, maybe 4.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was until 40, no?
No, I said 15 minutes.
Okay, so anyway, implication for future. So I will leave this to you, these seven recommendations, and I will just bring you very much quickly into the future again. Because as we said, AI seems like the new paradigmatic shift that we all were waiting for, and the policy agenda for this last year was very, very high, in the sense that we have now with the new commission the need to define exactly the governance of AI. I won't make much of publicity of the AI Watch, that is the knowledge service to monitor, develop, uptake, and impact of AI for Europe that we may run at the JRC together with Connect and support of Digit. And I'm leading the task on AI for the public sector. And we just released at the end of the month or last month the first report on mapping AI use in public services in the EU, where we cover all member states and Switzerland, Norway, and UK. So As I don't have time, I won't go into much of the details of the results that you can see in the report itself, and the analysis of the national AI strategies that we have been doing using a complementary review of what are the analysis of the strategies of member states. And here some of the open issues and policy implications that resonate very well with what also Max said in terms of the need to innovate also in public procurement through GovTech and going beyond the ever piloting paradox and also other that we already discussed about. So coming to the conclusion and looking to the future again, clearly if we look at the tech giant like Qualcomm and others, they all see this, that super AI will soon realize the singularity dream. And but in reality, expectations are not necessarily coupled with the social political trends that we see, and in certain to certain extent are exacerbating some of the issues we saw already 10 years ago. What is the role of the state vis-a-vis the market? Who will govern the technological and the digital transformation? And what is the level of the individual protection of data and what it comes with. I won't go into details, but this is a framework I'm also contributing as part of the Trigger project that looks at scenarios 2050, where we see clearly that there are a number of uncertainty that we need to address now. And within this framework, we've been developing our, our scenario exercise with two possible foresight dimensions. On one side, the digital landscape, so the regulatory aspects from interventionist to a more liberalist hands-off approach, and the data protection where the data subject has either a weak or a strong sovereignty. And this issue of sovereignty is clearly central to this, because there is again a bit of a rhetoric and on the digital sovereignty that the EU should gain or regain, where clearly, and this is putting at stake the possible future that we will have. I won't go into details as there's not much time, but clearly we see, let's say, a kind of status quo where the market-led or the worldwide West could continuing, or a scenario where the government actually take the lead, or the other side we could go into a more dystopian, more surveillance, a bit like Shoshana Zuboff surveillance capitalism view perspective, or rather a more utopian governance where bottom-up governance could emerge, maybe even using blockchain or other digital ledger technology. So, well, here, as I say, we had a workshop last week, and now we are going back to the Star Trek Enterprise to finalize our policy documents and research material. But just to conclude, we have to be also careful, because things happen sometime abruptly, and like for instance in 1990 the fall of the Berlin Wall or other happening around the world that changed completely history. And so as my friend Aaron Rosa is used to say, we need to build a scenario that is a scenario of a possible world, a world that does not have to be yet, but may yet to come to pass. And that's why we still hope, I still hope that in 2040 we could live a better digital world and digital Europe for all of us and for my daughter and our children. So thank you a lot again for the attention. If there's question, I'm happy to contribute, and I'm sure this will be just the beginning of a new future. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Gianluca, for giving us 3 sets of scenarios: the old, the past, and the present. Samos 2030, then Samos 2020, then Samos 3030, crossroad to JRC, and now to DigiGov, which is also the one I had the privilege to be part in your Seville workshop. That was last week already. You see, Seville and Samos are always next to each other. And I would like to say, waiting for any question from students or participants. I also shared this AI Watch report that Gianluca was saying about. This is a different topic, but of course very well connected here. I shared in the chat, so you can read it. It's a very, very strong publication, this one. Maybe 80, 90 pages of really, really in-depth analysis of a lot of issues around AI. But I would like to stay to the scenarios because that was the main point here. And I would like to ask Gianluca. Gianluca, yes, you have been initiating, I remember in Crossroads, we did that first, but you have been following this scenario foresight exercise for already 10 years. And I like it. I mean, I always find it a nice way to communicate to people. And I urge also the students to jump into this. We will give maybe a short essay in this subject as well. But my question is the following. Do you see that policymakers, first, of course, at European level, which is a different story, but also at national level, the governments, the Spanish government or the Greek government or the Belgian government, do they really care about such long shot scenarios? Because I'm sure that companies do, but what is your opinion? I have my own opinion, but I would like to have your opinion on that. How far, if we are away, are from a situation that our government would really do this foresight exercise for our future?
Well, I believe we share a bit the answer because the concern, because clearly this is an exercise that I mean, is not new, has been around for many years. And as you said, in fact, many big private sector companies and in general in the, let's say, the strategic planning and foresight functions of the private sector, there is I mean, a serious effort to look at how this can be useful for today's policymaking. In the public sector, instead, I see still not yet incorporated into the policy making. Hopefully this is now coming. For instance, the Commission is making a big effort, and not only because, as I say, there is a Vice President Šefčovič that has this specific role with institutional relations and foresight within the Commission, so also trying to put together the knowledge that is already available within the Commission and institutions, European institutions, but also working in collaboration with the member states. But still, I see that it's you know, there is this usual issues that policymakers and politicians in particular, they look more at the election and the short time frame, while foresight need to go let's say back in the future. But, and this also because foresight of course is not let's say I mean, although it's not considered a hard discipline or research issue, it's an art rather than just a tool. And clearly it is important that it is well also used. And what is more important about the foresight is actually when we say, as I said before, beam me up Scotty, so bring us back to the today. So basically we do a backcasting exercise. So well, we try to see what will change in the future today. So because the decision that policymakers take today will have impact on our future and the life of our children.
I see. I agree with several parts of your thoughts. Because you see, I would like all of you students and participants to realize that this is not a question of predicting the future. As also Gianluca said, I mean, I found this when I started these exercises, I didn't know this style of work with scenarios. I thought, oh, we're going to predict the future. But then I realized it's not about this, it's a hint about predicting the future that will make you debate on what you want from your present and your life. So I would improvise now here. I would play a small improvisation by saying we have people here from the Greek government at a very high stage. So let's give them the chance. So we're not waiting for an answer, but if you want, I mean, Greece is at a crossroads. Just after the financial crisis, just within the COVID, we are still in a lot of troubles, but we have a government that it looks like they want to really shape the future in a systematic way. I would be glad to join Gianluca, if he would like, and more from this team here, to do a scenario exercise for Greece. Now, not for the society in general, but for a nation and a state, of course, at a high level for the next 10 to 20 years. This is a big discussion now in Greece because we have all this financing also coming because of COVID in Europe, and all of the countries will have a kind of restart money. So if we are to make something of this money, this is the time to do a scenario exercise for what the future would look like in each of the different perspectives. Is Greece going to become a touristic place, for example? Is it going to become a producer of goods? Is it going to become something in ICT? This is one perspective. There can be many perspectives, of course. So there are people here from the presidency of the government. I know them. So I give you this hint. I play my little taratata in this direction. We have Gianluca and we have a lot more behind him that would be glad to make such an exercise for a country at a certain time. We can do it for Samos, but Samos is is also smaller.
We could link to the ISEGov if hopefully it's happening on site.
Yes, you have to know that we should announce that ISEGov 2020 will be done online. We take the decision yesterday, last days, because we had this poll, and it looks like COVID is not at all gone. So most of the participants will have tremendous issues in coming to Athens. So, but we will announce that in the next days to come. So okay. We thank and we clap Gianluca from a distance. And I'm taking, Gianluca, you can still answer some of the questions offline because they're in the chat. Maria is asking something and things like that. So this is also the opportunity that we work in parallel. I have to move and... Ciao. Bye, Gianluca.